Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite Size Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. Today we are going to be talking about a Salesforce integration known as Klue Battle Cards, which was recently hijacked in a supply chain attack against multiple Salesforce users, stealing their data. Now, what is Klue, and what the heck is a battle card? Because it sounds like some kind of Pokemon thing, and not a tech company. Klue Battle Cards specifically is a marketing platform that brings you information about your competitor. The Battle Card feature is a strategic card, like an actual document, that gives you points about your competitors. You can customize them to give your salespeople little sales quips about why you are better. Klue itself is just a competitive intelligence and sales enablement platform, and the battle cards are kind of its whole gimmick. It aggregates some internal data from your customer relations management software, as well as public intelligence to provide your sales representatives with real-time talking points, price comparisons, things like that. Knowing this, you may be wondering how the heck did any hacker get anything even a little valuable out of Klue? Because it's just using some public data. I mean, sure, there may be some sales information in there, but a lot of that is not particularly sensitive anyways. And well, a lot of the data stolen wasn't from Klue itself initially. How is that even possible? An extortion group known as Icarus managed to compromise and exfiltrate data from the plugin. Some of the data stolen included business contracts, price quotes, and other sales-related data. Nothing all that sensitive, honestly. Icarus actually compromised Klue, not by phishing, but by actually taking advantage of an old compromised password from a legacy system that was no longer being used, but the password was also no longer removed or changed to something more complicated. As a result, it's still valid credentials. That credential was used to create OAuth tokens to connect Klue to a third-party integration. In this case, they connected it to Salesforce instances of different organizations. From there, they were able to siphon all of this marketing and sales data from the organizations they targeted from their Salesforce. Klue has since removed the unauthorized code change and has changed the credentials to something a bit more secure. Icarus is a very new threat actor that just started appearing in April of this year, although some of their actions are similar to what I would expect from someone like the Shiny Hunters. They don't appear to be related. The Shiny Hunters just also love to target Salesforce. 2026 has not been a good year to use Salesforce. They posted that Klue was one of their victims on their leak site and said that they want to contact them for a quick resolution. Meanwhile, other organizations affected by this data breach include Jamf, a MacBook management solution. The data leak for them was pretty limited to internal business data, no customer data was involved. Recorded Future had some client contact info leaked. Huntress, the cybersecurity firm, was impacted. Tanium had their business data impacted, and some AI sales company called Gong had some licensed user data stolen. One thing I will note is that this could have been prevented by the people running Klue pretty easily had they been more careful about things like disabling accounts that no longer exist, removing credentials, switching to a more secure form of credentials, rotating the credentials, retiring the account and deleting it entirely. Compromised credentials were of an account that was used for testing purposes but ultimately was abandoned. And those credentials still sat there, and the credential token was able to be used by threat actors. Salesforce didn't care what kind of token was being used, just that it was a legitimate Salesforce token, so it's authorized to use that existing connection that one company has decided to make willingly with Salesforce and Klue. This is a good example of supply chain attacks and how they can be rather unpredictable and lead to some very interesting types of attacks. You had to just be a Salesforce user who happened to see this integration to help your sales team and think, oh, that's cool, and now suddenly a hacker is able to siphon your Salesforce data without ever touching your Salesforce. What sucks about relying on third parties, but it's just a reality a lot of people have to face, is you can't control their security. You presumably don't control security at Microsoft or Klue or Salesforce or really anywhere. So you're never sure what kind of vulnerabilities are going on their end that they're unaware of, and what kind of new things threat actors are finding. Everyone is all about having as much software do a lot of things and integrating everything together really nicely so that things just work really good together. And that's great for functionality, for automation, but it's not always great for security. Much like anything security related, you need to strike a balance between usability and security. unfortunately, and sometimes things are really just completely out of your control, and you have to accept that, which is something that for me personally is honestly very difficult to accept. I'm a bit of a control freak, especially about security-related things, so things being potentially completely out of your control is quite scary. The best thing you can do is introduce different compensating controls to minimize the impact of such things happening. That can be done with more advanced permissioning, being very granular with that, with network segmentation, being careful even just what third-party applications you choose to use for things, because, let's face it, you can't necessarily make everything in-house. You can, but it's going to be very, very painful for you to do. It's not inherently wrong or insecure to rely on third-party products. I mean, that's what they're there for. There's just also a lot more risks that need to be taken into account. Thank you to Security Week, the Hacker News, Bleeping Computer, and Dark reading for information on this Klue data breach, and of course, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite Size Cybercrime, and until next time, stay secure.